We're going to talk about something that is definitely going to lean more meathead than anything else, right? And we're going to talk about how Caleb Wilson's rookie year could completely reshape how aggressive Bryson Graham is going to be even as soon as next offseason potentially. Because this isn't just about whether Caleb Wilson can put up good numbers or not as a rookie. This is about whether he can show enough potential where it makes Bryson Graham feels like he has to be more aggressive next offseason about putting the right players around Caleb Wilson and taking the team even another step further. Of course, we're hoping that Caleb Wilson is going to be a foundational player playing right next to Matas Buzelis and Josh Giddey. We'll talk a little bit about that and how Caleb and Matas are already building their chemistry, playing in a pro-am. We'll talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go into this content for today, y'all. So, Caleb Wilson said he wanted to get right to work this summer. He said he did not want to take any time off, that he was going to get right to work, and that's exactly what he meant, right? Taking no time off after Summer League. Just a few days after Summer League officially ended, you got to see Caleb Wilson and Matas Buzelis in a program together, running together. And that matters a lot because as it stands right now, Caleb Wilson and Matas Buzelis are two of Chicago's most important and biggest front court pieces. And you got to see even him, Caleb Wilson, throw an alley-oop to Matas Buzelis in regards to that. And that's fun. The connection is fun, right? But the bigger deal here is that these guys are working on their chemistry. And that's an important part of it. For those that are Bears fans or even any football fans, you'll know, often your quarterback and your wide receivers or tight ends will get together and they'll do some workouts outside of OTAs and mini camps and things like that. And that's what it seems like right now. When you have two guys that love to be in the gym, that love to work, that's going to be important. And both these guys love to defend. They love to run. They like to create space. And they're going to be building and getting that chemistry together, much like we saw Matas Buzelis and Ayo Dosunmu do, with them both being from Chicago, so their offseason homes being from Chicago. And with Caleb Wilson already saying he's going to be living and dying in the Advocate Center and stuff like that, these two guys are putting in the work, the necessary work to build that chemistry. And if you see these two guys come into next season, come into training camp, come into the preseason, and already have some chemistry, they started to do that work now, right? The versatility that these two players have could be the foundation of what the Chicagos are building off of, right along with Josh Giddey and his ability to run that, right? And it led me to this topic that I want to talk about today. How much could Caleb Wilson's rookie season really change for the game plan and the direction of the Chicago Bulls heading into next offseason, right? This is not just about rookie stats. I want to be clear in this, and I'm not saying that these things are going to happen. I'm going to give the green light, the yellow light, and the red light options in regards to this, just so we're keeping it honest as far as the conversation, right? Caleb Wilson doesn't need to be Chicago Bulls leading scorer right away. I think most people understand that. It's not about that. He does have to show that pathway towards becoming more than a high-level role player, becoming that player that can be a foundational piece and maybe who you build your team around in regard to that. The Bulls could very well leave year one under Caleb Wilson with a thought process of, does he have the possibility of being the best player on a team that's a true playoff team? And that's what you want to see in regards to that one. He's going to show, hopefully, the flashes of all-star upside, right? And those type of things. I think depending on how consistent those flashes are and depending on how confident Bryson Graham feels in that, you can get a much more aggressive Bryson Graham next offseason. While the common thought is, and the Bulls said it, they're on the ground floor, they're going to take their time, they're going to do it correctly. But doing it correctly does not mean that you don't become a little bit more aggressive if that rookie year for Caleb Wilson shows that he's already blossoming into a star. Now, I want to be clear here. The most likely scenario and thing of this is that we're probably not going to feel like this until year two, maybe even year three, right? Sometimes, very rarely, you feel like after year one of a player that you're like, damn, this is a guy that we need to immediately start being a little bit more aggressive in regards to. So what are some of the things that he has to do? It's the things that we've already talked about for Caleb Wilson. How reliable is the jumper? That's one of the biggest swing skills on top of his ball handling that you look at for Caleb Wilson. If Caleb Wilson comes into this situation And his shooting is legit. Shooting what I think he shot 41% from three over the course of summer league. If some stuff like that maintains this year, hey, it could be huge for the Chicago Bulls. If Caleb Wilson shows himself to be I'd say even a 35, 36% shooter from three, it shows so much growth based off what his pre-draft, kind of doubts and things were. So you look at that. Well, I think when you look at things that help Caleb Wilson project as a star right away is the defensive playmaking, the transition dominance as far as both in offense and on defense, the front court versus defense that he's going to show in regards to that one, being able to build that rebound and grab and go type mentality, like getting the rebound, then can you start the fast break, right? Like that's a little bit of what we saw in that video with him and Matas, but it's pro-am, it's not NBA talent, those type of things. How much pressure does he put on the rim? Does he grow any face-up game in regards to that season as well? And of course, the thing that I talked so much about this offseason, short roll passing and how that works for the team as well, right? If the Bulls come out of the rookie year for Caleb Wilson and think this is a player that can eventually become one of the three best players on a team that's making a serious playoff run, then you already know what that means. That means you need to be more aggressive about surrounding that player with the talent that you need to make that next step. The jumper has to become respectable, which we already know in regards to that, right? And I think also how many different roles can he play on the front court? Not position, but roles, right? Can he play more of a traditional power forward role at times? Or do you feel like he's making that progress towards that? It's going to take a while to develop a back-to-the-basket game, and I'm not saying that he needs to be a traditional power forward, but how many flashes of that do you see? Does he play any small ball center for you? I don't want to really see that. I think we got Jalen Smith for that. We got Zach Collins. I don't really want to run Caleb Wilson as he's putting on weight as a small ball center. I think that's going to be kind of maybe a more in specialty lineups type thing. But there you go in regards to that one. How switchable is he right away? We know that Caleb Wilson projects to be the switchable 1-4 defender, but how much of that does he show right away in his rookie year? I think that's going to be a big part of that. And then how good is that weak side rim protection as well? Those things work out for him. You're really good. The biggest rookie questions for Caleb Wilson comes down to this. Is he going to be able to survive against stronger forwards as he's growing his own game? And some of you guys have pointed out as well, like, hey, maybe he needs to play small forward and maybe Matas is the power forward still. Regardless, they're both going to be interchangeable in that regard, right? Can you defend? How many different positions can you guard for long and short stretches, right? But just because you're a switchable defender, it doesn't mean that you switch on the point guard and now you're guarding the point guard for the entirety of a possession. It may mean, hey, I can stay with this point guard long enough while the defense calibrates. That's what you want to look at in regards to that one. And can you switch without fouling? That is such an important part for a young player in this league, especially if you're a defensive minded. How many positions can you guard without that foul rate going up? And I think that's the thing that you look in regards to that too. The decision making for Caleb Wilson, right? We've talked about that. The turnovers were a problem in summer league, as was the free throw shooting. But those are things that I think he's going to work out. I'm not really worried about that. And then how much of the defense, the thing that I'll say with this, right, in regards to Caleb Wilson's defense, I think Caleb Wilson is going to make a lot of the highlight reel defensive plays very early on, meaning some of the steals that lead to fast breaks for dunks for him or other players, some of the weak side blocks. He's going to do those things well, but the non-highlight defensive plays, right, meaning when you hedge, right, how many times do you force a player to pick up their dribble? Those type of things, right? How many times do you force a player to pass out of a drive rather than try to get to the rim? Those little bit of things, that's really what really makes a player a defensive beast, right? When he's able to do those things consistently. And that's what you want to see from Caleb Wilson as well early on, right? And then, of course, the fit with Matas Buzelis, the fit with Josh Giddey. I get it. There's been a lot of talk in this fan base about Josh Giddey recently, and there are even some that have the talk about Matas Buzelis and the doubt around him. I don't really care about none of that, right? I told you guys in regards to that. I think sometimes too much as a fan base, we try to make, storylines or competition where it doesn't need to be one. Caleb and Matas are going to really build and work together. Now, we'll see if eventually maybe it doesn't fit as well as it looks like on paper, but you're trying to build and develop those guys together. And Josh Giddey right now is a guy that can keep it all together and function as that guy that can keep everybody honest. As Caleb's working on creating his own shot, Matas is working on being able to create his own shot, those type of things, right? The easy opportunities that Giddey is going to create for Matas, Caleb, Nick Claxton, everybody is going to be huge. Can Caleb and Matas defend the forward positions together? How switchable are those guys together as well? And does Caleb's presence help or hurt the spacing on the court? That's going to be a long-term and a short-term answer for him as well. So I said before, we're going to have the green light, yellow light, and red light on what it means for after Caleb Wilson's rookie years, right? And again, I haven't said any of that about winning rookie of the year. I haven't said anything about all rookie first team. I haven't said nothing about that, right? Because it's not just about that I think you get these answers too. Of course, if Caleb Wilson wins rookie of the year and he looks dominant, he looks like a player that, hey, you run rookie of the year, you may be an all-star next year. That definitely changes some stuff for the Bulls. But I think the green light, if the Bulls get the green light to accelerate the timeline, it comes down to this. Caleb's averaged 16 to 18 points per game, 8 to 9 rebounds per game, 2.5 to 3 assists per game. You know, maybe in regards to that, you look at combined steals and blocks, maybe 2.5, 3 combined steals and blocks per game. And if he can shoot that 34 to 36% from three, and I think that's really good. And then the overall efficiency. If his overall efficiency comes down to being, you know, around league average efficiency on his scoring, I think if you see all of that in his rookie year and you make a clear impact and he doesn't taper off in the second half of the year, those numbers are good enough for Bryson Graham to look at and say, listen, I know we're still going to be patient. I'm not saying turn around and trade all your first for, you know, a borderline all-star like DeMar DeRozan. I'm not saying that, but I do think it becomes about where it's like, hey, we're going to play this thing a little bit more patient to, all right, we made that next step. We may be able to go to the next tier of this. What does that then look like for you, right? Graham's response to that, if Caleb Wilson has that, comes down to how much do you aggressively pursue that perimeter creator that can be there long-term for you, whether it's in the draft, whether it is combining your picks to move up in the draft. That's another form of aggression here where you say, hey, listen, it's not going to take 4 years anymore. Maybe it's going to take us 2 more, but because of that, we're going to combine the 2027 and 28 first-round pick. We're going to make sure we move up and get our guy. Or you get a little bit more aggressive and try to go after a Bryce Sensabaugh, who I've talked about a lot on this show at this point as well, right? I think that's what you look at in regards to that. Consolidating draft assets to turn that into maybe your perimeter player in your long-term, then answer at the 2 guard position to pair with Matas and Caleb Wilson and those type of things. That's what you have to you get into in regards to that. I do think those are the things that can make the contracts a little bit different. We'll talk about that here in a second as well. The yellow light, the light that says, okay, maybe we're a little bit ahead. We still want to maintain our flexibility, but at the same time, we think that we've seen some things that show we may be a little bit more, right? And so that part, it may go from adding from this season where you added functional veterans. Maybe you are adding a more premium piece, right? Maybe you are being a little bit more aggressive about a certain free agent center or something like that. Not necessarily putting all your chips in and trading your future first, but maybe you are consolidating some money that's spread out against multiple players and then trying. For example, let's say this, and I know I'm using this as a name, as a realistic possibility, not saying it just comes down to this player or not, right? But let's say that you feel very strongly coming out of next season, but you look at that and say, hey, Nick Claxton is a good center, right? But we want to find our long-term. Let's say Jalen Duren does take the qualifying offer for Detroit this year and is an unrestricted free agent next year. If you get the right response from Caleb and Matas and those guys together, you may turn around and say, all right, yeah, we're going to opt out of Norman Powell. We're going to opt out of Nick Claxton's contract or Zach Collins' contract, and we about to put in a big offer and try to get Jalen Duren in the building. That's what you could possibly do, right? And then the red light part of this, the part that you just remain on your development plan. You don't try to accelerate anything. You give it another year, and that is just if Caleb Wilson has a normal rookie season. If you have a team in this that, you know, you see the fit, the possibility of it, but maybe you're not as strongly confident in what that fit's going to be long term. So you want to see another year of that, right? Maybe you've seen some signs of it, but you didn't see enough consistency from that you wanted to see in regards to that. And maybe Caleb and Matas maybe struggle to coexist, or maybe your minutes on the court tell you Caleb and Matas are really good, but maybe Josh Giddey, and I'm just throwing out names. I'm not trying to set off any member of the fan base. I'm just throwing shit out there, right? That's why I'm saying it from all aspects of that. I think that's where Bryson Graham maintains where he's on now, building consistently through the draft, using cap space where it matters, trying to maybe acquire some more assets, being patient. But this all comes down to the flexibility that the Bulls have next summer. The Bulls have a team option on Norman Powell, Zach Collins, and Trey Jones. The combination of those 3 options, right? Combination of those get you to $39 million, right? And that's a lot of money where you can do some stuff with. The 3 salary cap situations for the Bulls next year work out like this. If you keep Powell, Collins, and Jones, your estimated payroll is $142 million, right? And with the projected 174 million projected cap, you still have you have about $32 million in raw space projectedly, even if you keep all those guys. At that point, and with rookie extensions and stuff like that, you're probably looking at about 25 million that you can play with, and that's enough to go after another impactful starter if you need to. Maybe you look at this and say, let's keep Norman Powell, but we're going to decline Zach Collins, we're going to decline Trey Jones, or you've moved those guys to other teams. In that part, then your cap would fall to 125 million, and then you have $49 million in raw cap space with about a 38 million spending potential in that when you look at some other extensions and options that could come up in regards to that one. That gives you even more spending power. And then if you decide to decline all three options, right? If you say we're gonna decline Norman Powell, we're gonna decline Zach Collins, right? Well, I almost want to say Nick Collins, Zach Collins, and Trey Jones. You then are reducing your salary caps bill to $102 million, and you have $71 million in raw spending power. That can actually turn into closer to $78 million, depending on what you do with some other situations as well. Keep in mind, you also have decisions on Isaac Okoro, Jalen Smith, and Leonard Miller coming up in that regard as well. So the Bulls, I said this when it happened, Bryson Graham cooked in the way that he operated this offseason because of what he laid out here in regards to maintaining flexibility. And I know that that's something that it sounds right. We've heard things like that before with AK and stuff like that. But Bryson Graham really has maintained flexibility and as soon as next season. You can kick that down 2 seasons from now as well if you pick up all the options and give yourself 2 years to really evaluate this. At that point, you got to get ready to start extending Matas Buzelis, and you'd have to get ready to start deciding on what the long-term future of Josh Giddey is, because he'd have 1 year on his contract left after that point too. But you can kick that can down the road 2 more years, and then you still have tremendous flexibility when it's all said and done too. So, this is, and that's we're just focusing on Caleb Wilson, Matas, and Josh Giddey here. Let's say, God forbid, a Rob Dillingham puts it together, or Leonard Miller hits another leap, or a guy like Dalen Swain, who a lot of Bulls fans are down on, actually gets his shit back in gear, which we have a quote from him. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second as well. If those things continue in that path as well, it pushes you even further into your timeline. So I think what Graham has done here is put himself in a good position to evaluate and then also call audibles based off what he's seeing in that evaluation period. That's what it comes down to. Now, of course, the 2027 free agent market is filled with names kind of like Michael Porter Jr. could potentially be out there. Karl-Anthony Towns could be out there. Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, those type of guys. I'm not necessarily saying that the Bulls will be ready to go after a swing for one of those guys or anything like that. But I'm just saying that the flexibility is there if that's what Bryson Graham chooses to do. But a lot of this hinges on who Caleb Wilson and Matas Buzelis, for that matter. And I don't say that to knock Josh Giddey fans, because I think Josh Giddey is a player that I think he is still left to refine his game. Make no mistake about it. There's a lot of refinement that he's still going to do in his game. But I think we know who Josh Giddey is. He's a triple-double threat that can operate your offense, that makes other players better around him. And the one question with him is how consistent is that shooting going to be, right? But even without that, you surround him with the right players, you can mitigate that some. So I don't say that to knock him, but so many questions on this team. And that's what the fun part of this is. No matter how good or bad the Chicago Bulls are next year, it's going to be an important evaluation period as well. And if you don't think other teams and other players around the league are watching to see what those young forwards and Caleb Wilson and Matas Buzelis can turn into, then I don't know what to tell you, because players and teams are definitely watching that. And the East that we just talked about on yesterday's episode got so much deeper. That's what you're going to have to. Bryson Graham's job over these next 2 years, and I say 2 years because that's when, if you don't decline anybody's options, that's when you're going to have the next bit of max level cap spaces in 2 years. In that time, you got to determine, is Josh Giddey your long-term point guard here? Is he your long-term organizer here? Is Matas Buzelis, what do you see about his ceiling? Do you see a future all-star? Do you see a strong third option on a winning team? Caleb Wilson, do you see that true star? Do you see him developing into that star around the league that can be one of the best two-way players in the league? And then, of course, you're looking at other players like Leonard Miller, Dalen Swain, Noah Essengay, Rob Dillingham. Do any of these guys turn into anything remotely into a serviceable or better NBA player? And if you say the answer on that, then yeah, Caleb Wilson is going to have the green light. But it's still down to Bryson Graham to drive the car and to decide what players are going to be in that car, even if Caleb Wilson has the green light. And these next 2 years are going to be really important and fun for that. like I said, meathead topic, more meathead than what I usually do here at Chicago Bulls Central, but I do think it's gonna be fun. It's not about Caleb Wilson necessarily proving that he's a superstar in year one, but it is about proving if the Bulls feel like they're close to the fact that they found one. And that answer is going to determine a lot, and we'll see. Now, what the next season or so is going to determine a lot for is another player in Dalen Swain as well. And Dalen Swain was interviewed, and he talked a little bit about his struggles in Summer League and what that meant for him. He was interviewed by The Athletic, where he said this: whenever a coach gives you a guy an opportunity, draft position, first round or not, you got to be grateful for that. You got to go into it and embrace it. Embrace the journey. Those dips, they make you grow. They develop you. They prepare you for the worst. He went on to acknowledge and say that he got in his own head. He was overthinking out in Summer League instead of just playing ball, which is something when you play a new position, in fairness, you would expect. And he also recognized that given the role of the lead playmaker, even in Summer League for the new coach, it means that Tiago Splitter sees something in him, right? And so I said this, and I know it's becoming a hot button topic for Bulls fans, and Bulls fans are so ready to call him a bust after stuff, and I hope that he proves all of that wrong. I hope that he proves it on the basketball court. I would love nothing more for us to be talking about 20, 25 games in the Dalen Swain's rookie year and be like, hey, y'all remember when y'all were overreacting over Summer League? But it comes down to this for Dalen, right? The Summer League was rough. There's no ifs, ands, doubts about that. The Summer League was rough. But I love hearing that he at least acknowledges, hey, I didn't play good, and here's why I didn't play good, but it's up to me to figure that out and get through this part, right? And that's it. That's it. Like, that's what you want for any young player that's facing some adversity. It's not wither away and just take it. Dalen Swain's not doing that. I think his comments showed self-awareness. I think it showed gratitude for the opportunity that he has here, and you want him to embrace the development. You do not want him to panic in that. And we'll see what's going to happen in regards to it. Training camp is going to be a big story told for Dalen Swain if he's Windy City bound or if he's ready for real reps in the real playing ground of the NBA. And we'll see what that happens. I'm not going to make huge knee-jerk reactions based off Summer League, even though I know a lot of Bulls fans and even some of my own, coworkers here is what I call them in podcasting, cohorts or whatever you want to call them, are ready to do that. But we're going to see what's going to happen with Dalen Swain. And hopefully he comes out on the other side of this in a much better position and centered, and then we can talk about that then. I guess before we go to, do want to acknowledge that Derrick Rose is going to be on the cover of the Ultimate Edition of NBA 2K27. And, shout out to him for that. Like, Derrick Rose, what they did, I think, with this 2K2 is like, you're seeing all, like Caitlin Clark, Wemby is the main cover athlete. And the theme kind of there is like young players who all kind of exceeded, early, right? Derrick Rose won an MVP, very early into his career. Wemby already being what he was, getting to NBA Finals. Caitlin Clark being what she is in the WNBA. And so it's made it for a lot of Bulls fans an immediate buy, and I love to see that from Bulls fans. So I just wanted to spend some time acknowledging it. Most people are going to buy the game digitally. I don't know what a cover does digitally for anybody, but hey, it is what it is there. But to get off that, man, all I got to say in this is that Caleb Wilson's rookie year is going to tell us a lot. And it's not just about Caleb. It's about the growth of Matas, Josh Giddey, all these guys, and what it says about the Bulls timeline. We could see the Bulls timeline accelerate more than what we thought this upcoming year, but they got to go out there and prove that for that to end up being the case. But sound off down below and how you feel and think about all these topics. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of Breaks